episode of You Don't Know Squatch.
How's it going, everybody? How you doing, Jim?
I'm doing great, Josh. How are you?
Alrighty, you excited about today's interview?
Oh man, very excited. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
And we actually have somebody in the studio this time. That's a first.
Yeah, this is the first to have our guest with us instead of on the phone.
All right, so can you tell us a little about Ron?
Yeah, Ron is a good friend. Ron is well known in the Sasquatch Bigfoot world as the one who recorded probably the best vocalizations of Sasquatch ever made to date.
Wow, all right. So, Bigfoot has his own CD.
Hey, he's got his own mixtape, man.
All right. Well, what do you say we get him in here?
Yeah, let's get Ron in and let him tell us about his adventures.
Your call will be answered in the order it was received.
So we are joined in our fantastic studio here by Ron Morehead. Ron is a resident of Washington, and he is best known for his Sierra Sounds recordings made in the Sierra Nevada mountains in the 1970s. And welcome, Ron. We're glad you're here with us.
Hey, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for asking me.
And I think our listeners are probably, those who don't know you, would like to know just a little bit about the recordings in the 70s and how that happened, and then we'll go into your most recent book.
I was part of a hunting group in the 70s who encountered, 8 miles into the wilderness of the Sierra Nevada mountains, a family of Bigfoots. And at first we didn't know what to think of them, if they were a bear or what, but the vocalizations they make and the sounds and the amplitude in which they display that stuff is very unique. We encountered, they started coming around our camp, hunting camp, and none of us were looking for Bigfoot, so we thought they were just kind of a unique animal out there. You see their tracks, you know there's something really unique about them. And anyway, we started recording them, going back, and they came back and taking our foods right at dusk. And that's kind of how it got started. In 1972, this was all 1971, 1972, we had an investigative reporter go in there who recorded some sounds, and he fostered a study on those sounds at the University of Wyoming, showing that they were not manipulated, speeded up, slowed down, or monkeyed around with, basically. That's a bad word, monkeyed around.
Monkeyed around with, yeah, talking about Bigfoot.
Anyway, subsequently, he gave his report to Anthropology of the Unknown in British Columbia in 1978. And there was a Professor Curlin at the University of Wyoming who did that, and he showed those sounds to be very unique outside, inside, below, and above the human range, which makes them pretty suggestive of mimicking other animals. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until 2008 when cryptolinguists heard him. He came all the way out from Missouri to interview Scott, his name's Scott Nelson. He interviewed Al Berry, he's a reporter that went in, and myself, to get the context of these sounds. And he's trained by the Navy as a cryptolinguist, which transcribes unknown languages. And he determined that the sounds we recorded were indeed a language by the human definition. That means something special because only humans have sapient thought transmission like that with language. And we have the right apparatus to do that. It requires a morphine stream of words, 10 or 12 words that make up a cognizant sentence, and that's what these things have. He had to slow him down, and he did just what the Navy trained him to do. He still teaches foreign languages in Missouri, even though he's retired from the Navy. And that was a big step, and getting the professionals behind it, because we knew when we were hearing them that they were talking to each other in some type of a gibberish, but till you have a professional like that, and he's trained, two-time graduate of the Defense Institute of Languages in California, and he's very well qualified. I had him vetted, and anyway, that went on from there, and it wasn't until just recently when this guy called Thinker Thunker came out with something, which on the Sierra Sounds, Thinker Thunker Sierra Sounds, that's how you can find it, but it's a 20-minute analysis of our recordings, and he determined whether in one tone, there's five octaves in one tone, which is inhumanly possible, supposedly, for any human or any known animal to do. And I'm trying now to get that corroborated by a professional bioacoustical engineer.
So did you ask Thinker Thunker to do that, or he just...
No, he picks those things up, just try to nail them or kick them out, one or the other.
That's crazy.
Well, before we talk about your newest book, I'm just curious, since you recorded the Sierra Sounds, has anyone recorded anything like it, length, breadth of Sasquatch vocalizations?
Not that I know of, no, and it was something so unique then, I had no idea how unique it was, because most people don't walk around with tape recorders.
Right.
We went back up there, and these things came back over and over for several years. And there's still something strange going on up there.
Well, I compare your recordings to the Patterson-Gimlin film in that since the Patterson film was made, no one's ever made another film even remotely like it. And since your recordings were made, no one's ever recorded, in spite of all the equipment we have today that's in the field, our phones, our recorders, still Sierra Sounds is kind of the definitive Sasquatch vocalization.
See, that's interesting to me. Like you said, we have all this technology that we should be able to catch something similar. There's got to be something out there that's kind of the same, you know?
Well, maybe Sasquatch has figured out of our technology, and they're not appearing and vocalizing like they used to.
I've had a lot of people tell me they've heard sounds just like we recorded.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
You've got a 1924 incident with Albert Ostman,
Right.
who claims they were chattering amongst themselves when he was abducted in British Columbia. And you've got other people saying that they chatter and fast gibberish, and that's exactly what we recorded. So there's other people hearing this. It's just that a lot of people aren't walking around with tape recorders.
Right.
You know, we just stumbled across, or they stumbled across us because we thought we were kind of investigating them, but come on, I think they may have been investigating us.
Well, and not only people don't travel with recorders, but people don't have a situation where they can go back and the incident will recur on a regular basis.
That's so true, and that's what brought the red flag up with ours, because people thought it was hoax. It couldn't be. Nobody has something like that. And we didn't shrug our shoulders. Al Berry didn't shrug his shoulders. He kept fighting it, you know, and finally he got the professional Dr. Curlin behind the sounds and got some stuff done. Prior to that, he went to the Tybo, which is in New York City, with the sounds. They are responsible for the Nixon tapes, doing those. And they had a good report, but they didn't do a thorough examination of the sounds because it cost a lot of money.
Sure.
And but they did give a good report saying that they weren't manufactured in any way.
What I thought was most intriguing about those recordings was when you're interacting with them, and I guess Ron is the other voice that I'm hearing in those recordings, that it sounds like they're almost taunting you. They would make a sound and they would wait. And if you didn't do anything, they would do that sound again, and then you'd repeat it, and then they would go off on this long rant, and then they would do it again. They would taunt you.
They were playing with us.
Yeah.
This was in '74, 3 years after we first encountered them, and this is one of the first times I ever really did something like this while we're outside the shelter walls. And prior to that, it was more aggressive sounds, different type of sounds. And the cryptolinguist says the same vocal mechanism made those sounds in '74 as made the ones in '71, '72, and on. But it's just was quite the night. That's the night I got a glimpse of one. And I mean, they're very elusive, very stealthy, very much underestimated by most people, and including us at that time.
Sure.
I try to tell people nowadays to don't underestimate what they are.
Right.
Because
they're not just a great
and none of us really know what they are.
Right.
You know, we're all looking into this thing. It's just that they are unique. And I'm not so sure, since I've been dealing with this for 47 years, that they're not a step above us as far as awareness goes. We think we're the head of the food chain, but maybe we're not. Maybe they've evolved just a little bit more than people want to give them credit for.
You were mentioning that a linguist decided that it was a language.
Yes.
Now, how did they come to that determination? Because dolphins and whales, they all communicate.
Everything communicates, but these things communicate with a sapient language.
Okay.
Like we do, like we're doing now. And that's what's unique about it, because it falls right into my theory. I think they're a hybrid. You know, I think they got part human in them. And mitochondrial DNA, which is the maternal side, will suggest that just about every time they think they got sufficient DNA. But some physicists or some geneticists somewhere will say they've been contaminated by humans. And
Yeah.
stop it right there. But you get into the counterpart of that, the nuclear DNA, which is the male counterpart of whatever's going on, and they don't even get there because it's very complicated to do. Number one, if they think it's determined already to be human, they're not going to mess with it anymore.
Yeah. We actually got a chance to speak with somebody who did a study, and he was explaining the process, and I found it very interesting that only half of it is being able to be identified. The other half is just they don't know. It's unclassifiable.
Well, that's strange because there's like 224 billion samples in the gene bank, and they can't match it with anything.
Not any of them are a match for that side.
And that falls into your Greek mythology of demigods, aliens interbreeding with human genomes or an animal genome of some type, and trying to corrupt whatever's going on. And that's what the flood was supposedly all about. If you get into religious circles, the Noah's flood, because he was from a clean, pure line that had not been corrupted by alien intervention.
I just got through this book. It's really interesting, called Magicians of the Gods. And what they propose is there was a civilization. Atlantis was real. The flood was real, and that Atlantis wasn't actually Atlantis like we think it is. It's underwater, and they've found pyramids in it's over near India. I forgot
Africa.
exactly. And it's old. It's older than anything they've ever found before. So I think that's interesting. That
it is.
Yeah.
So much goes on that we think we know a lot, but we realize every day there's a whole lot more to learn.
Well, and as you get into, I'm sure you can attest to this, Ron, as you get into studying and researching Bigfoot, it opens your mind to all kinds of other things that you never thought about before, but just kind of, once you start thinking in one line, then you realize there's potentials out there for other civilizations, even here on Earth, other beings besides Bigfoot that we've never identified.
That's so true, I believe. Well, when we're all trained in Newtonian physics, that everything is material or physical, and that's not true.
Right.
We find out from Einstein, from Bohr, from Tesla, these people 100 years ago, that's where the quantum physics got into it, because it kind of defines things mathematically that's outside of our parameters of classical science. And that's where I'm at. Because there's so many mysteries. I've been interviewing people now for 40 years, and there's so many mysteries attached to these beings and why we can't dig them up and all that. And well, you just follow on the quantum physics because you can't explain it the other way. When we can't explain it the other way, how do these things, and so many people say they can disappear. Well, is that even possible? Well, yes, it is possible. If you can get the vibrational frequency high enough, I wouldn't see you.
Right.
And we can only see within light's frequency, and there's so many.
There's times I wish I could disappear.
Yeah. Wouldn't we all?
Well, speaking of quantum physics, that leads us into your book, Quantum Bigfoot. Tell us a little bit about what you're talking about.
This is what brought me. The mysteries that was in our camp, years ago, was not resolvable by classical science. I mean, what happening didn't make sense. The lights, the sounds, and I don't mean the chatter that we recorded. I mean, there's times, and I put this in my first book, Voices in the Wilderness, that there's times when you think our camp's being tore apart, and when we're inside the shelter, you hear all the cans rattling, you hear all the barrels being hit and all that stuff. You look out there and absolutely nothing has changed later on. And how do you account for that stuff? And just a couple of years ago, we was up there and didn't hear any chatter, but this elongated light comes floating by us, and it looked like a lifesaver, probably 40, 50 feet above our little tent we set up. And it's not unusual to have strange, unusual things going on. And you hear this stuff over 44 decades or more, and you got to try to put it together with some type of a answer.
Sure.
And my answer was, and Al Berry, the investigative reporter, he had a master's degree in science. He said, whatever you do, stay with science when you're talking about these things. So I did for years, just talk about what I thought I knew. There's things you know, and then there's things you think you know. Anyway, I figured, well, the science that would not justify, but that would qualify all those enigmas that are associated with these beings might just be quantum physics. But I was raised in church, religious circles, and I'm not religious anymore, but we are all spiritual beings. And I believe that these things are spiritual beings too. Everything is energy at its most minute level. So when you get to the subatomic level of things, there's a vibrational frequency that goes on. If you can change that frequency, you can change things. And I started putting quantum physics together, and I started realizing, hey, this is what Christ was talking about in the Bible. So you put spirituality and physics, and they're on the same plane. And according to Tesla, what one man calls God, another man calls quantum physics.
Well, we know even from the Bible that Jesus, in the physical body, walked through walls.
Yeah, and he could walk on water. Well, How many of us are walking on water? We're not walking on water. However, we can, and there's a way to do that, and it's through understanding quantum physics and who we are and who we were made in the image of. And anyway, we're made in the image of something very special, and it's not just alien of some type, like a lot of things probably are, but we are not. We are human beings. We've been given dominion on Earth, and these things I don't think are really supposed to be interacting with us like they are. But that's why they stay away. That's why they're so stealthy, I think, too. That's just my opinion.
Interesting idea.
Yeah, I'm kind of blown away at that.
Josh is getting a master's degree in Bigfootology these last few episodes.
It's just there's so much science behind it now.
Yeah, there is.
I'm blown away by this, and the light. What did you think that was?
Oh, a little spooky because you don't know if it's coming in after you or what it's doing. It's
Right.
checking us out.
And it would just float above you.
It was floating not above us, but beyond us, probably 40, 50 feet, wouldn't you say, Carrie? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't say it was a craft or anything.
It was a UFO of some type, but it just wasn't big.
How big? Yeah.
It was probably 3 foot long and elongated, glowing.
How bright was it?
It wasn't something going to put your eyes out like a fluorescent light. It was glowing.
And you could see it. Everyone who was there
we
could
watched
see
it for. Well, it's only 3 of us in camp, and we watched it for several seconds. It wasn't like just a flash. The thing was floating by us through the trees and
checked you out and moved on.
Kept going.
That's interesting because somebody else we interviewed for the museum for the videos that we'll be playing there, she mentioned an alien component to the sightings. That every time there's a Bigfoot sighting, there's a alien sighting, like a craft sighting with it. And not every time, but
very often that's true.
Yeah, that is true. I hear a lot of reports of alien UFO craft around the Bigfoot. In fact, I got a report from a guy just a few weeks ago, not too far from where our camp is, who witnessed a UFO at the same time with a Bigfoot. And there's times up there when you hear this big humming sound and in the daytime, and you don't know, it's like a big tuning fork above your head, and you're trying to find the source of it, but you can't. Well, we couldn't see the source of it. But there's a reason for that. There's a reason. All these things make sense through the science of quantum physics, and it's not a crutch for any of us. It's just the facts. The science of quantum physics goes beyond classical science and tries to explain things through mathematical methods, how all things work in the universe. And I have asked people, will you tell me how far it is to the end of the universe? Give me an idea. How many light years is it out there till you get to a wall? What's on the side of the wall?
And they're always finding more. It always goes on.
And how do you understand, get your head around something with no end to it?
Yeah.
Well, Bigfoot and all animal life, I think, if you take, they have what they call quantum entanglement, and we all have that. We just don't realize it. I think that's how telepathy works. It's not all of the devil. What's this devil stuff? It's just who we are as beings. We have the ability to entangle with each other. If you take a flock of birds, you see them all moving in the same pattern. They're not talking to each other. You get a school of fish in the ocean, they're all swimming together. They're not talking to each other. How are they doing that? There's science going on called quantum entanglement. And anyway, that's what we all have if we can just learn how to be one as Christ was.
Well, and animals like birds and fish can do that with a very limited level of intelligence, and at our level, we can't do that. We can't. We have a hard time functioning with other beings in unity and in love.
Yeah, it's because of what we've done as humans and how we are. We're making these decisions that are not based in love, and everything should be based in love and caring. But if you can decalcify, this gets a little deeper. I got a whole chapter in my book, Quantum Bigfoot, about this decalcifying your pineal gland, because I think that's the seat of the soul, according to it's the third eye. It's the eye of Horus that the Egyptians had. It goes way back. People have understood it has all the attributes of an eyeball, but it does not require light.
Interesting.
Think about that. It does not require light. We have to have light for these two eyes to
process what we're
and we process all through classical science of thinking everything has to be physical or material.
Right.
And that's not the way things. There could be entities all around us now that we're not seeing. And I believe that. That's where ghosts come from. It's all that. Their vibrational frequency just hasn't gotten where it needs to be out of our perception.
I'm stuck on this thing real quick, though. So are we suggesting that Sasquatch is an alien?
Partially.
Partially. Okay.
Over eons. I'm talking about eons of time. I think they've inbred with indigenous people. And they have crossbred. They've diluted down some of them to more human-like features, and some of them have not. And I don't think they're all the same. I got to put that out there, because some people think because there's a Bigfoot out there, well, of course you can't.
Well, if you think there's only one, for one.
They think there's only one. Oh, he'd have died a long time ago, or she would have.
Yeah.
And but no, there's all kinds of aliens in the cosmos. There's probably innumerable amounts of species. And I think a lot of advanced species. In fact, I'm sure I've been to Peru and Bolivia. I've seen remnants of species that were not human. And when you see that stuff, and see the stuff over the Nazca and into the Cusco area up in Bolivia, the Lake Titicaca, all this stuff, you see what could not have been done by our mentality nowadays. These big megalithic structures moved for miles and placed like a jigsaw puzzle on top of a 13,000-foot mountain. You see that stuff and you realize something's going on that I haven't been aware of.
Right.
Been told about it, but until you see it with your eyes, you're not going to go
things
for it.
Things like the pyramids, we're getting off our main topic, but things like the pyramids that even today, with our technology, we would have a hard time building to the level they built them.
Right. And plus all the chambers and everything inside those. That's a
phenomenal. And the fact that they're spread out too is another thing that they have them South America. They also have them Egypt. You know, it's weird that they spread out and they built the same way. I think they even China has pyramids as well. Yeah, I'm pretty sure in a form.
It's fascinating, and the more you get into the Sasquatch theme, the more I realize how little I know. So
these audio recordings, can people just listen to them by going somewhere? Or?
Yeah, I have a couple little bits on my webpage, ronmorehead.com, and I offer them a CD. I produced 2 CDs with the sounds and narration of the story. One of them was written by Alan Berry, and it's what he went through. Jonathan Frakes, Star Trek Next Generation, narrates that. It's about 40 minutes long. The second one I produced is my sounds when I was interacting with them. I narrate it myself, and it gives the interaction sequences. It gives the rhythmic pounding they do, the whooping sounds that they make. And these are all obtainable on my website, ronmorehead.com. Then I've got the 2 books, which I've written, Voices in Wilderness, which comes with a CD. Of when you get to the context of the sound I'm writing about, you can hear the sound. Mm-hmm. And that's also downloadable. All this is downloadable. And my new book, The Quantum Bigfoot, gets into what we've been talking about, how the enigmas of these things can be solved if you just look a little deeper and don't be stuck in the parameters of classical science, because that's what the problem is with most academia. They're stuck in the parameters of what they've been trained in. They get out of those parameters, they stand a chance of losing credibility within the university. They lose credibility, might lose their tenure even. I mean, these people suffer when they take on a subject like this. So it's difficult to get academia involved in when you say the word Bigfoot.
Oh, no, now you're way out there.
Yeah, now you're into the Loch Ness Monster too.
Exactly, and Mothman and everything.
And speaking of different things, like the Wolfman or the Dogman, or whatever you want to call it, and these different things, well, you get into the ranch, was it the Skinwalker Ranch? Yeah, and they talk about all these crazy things that happens. Well, you get into my theory of having different aliens doing different things to different type of entities, and I'm not talking about like Greek mythology talks about how they messed around with made half dog, half man, half horse, half man, and they all that stuff has been done, and. It's not that far of a stretch to think Bigfoot might be a remnant of something that some alien hasn't messed around with.
Mythology may not be as much myth as we like to think.
Well, the thing is, as time goes on, most myth turns into reality, because it's all got a core truth in its basic background somewhere.
See, I do believe that's true. Like,
Yeah.
I have always thought that was true. I mean, the stories come from somewhere.
A lot of reality nowadays will turn into myth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like
yeah.
Bigfoot. It's a reality. You ask any Native American, and they won't bow down to saying this is phony. They all believe it. They're out there. Leave them alone. They're part of what's going on, and
They're people. They're not
they
animals.
are people. And I've said that for years. These things, if you treat them more like a people, you might have more luck encountering them. And I think it's also who you are as a person, what you're ready for. Because if they can quantum entangle you, and I do believe they can, you
Look out.
look out and just make sure what you know what you're dealing with when you're dealing with it. Some people say, "Well, are they dangerous?" Well, it depends on which one you're dealing with.
You may get more than you're asking for.
Yeah.
So
I say if you come back and one of them ripped your arm off, start beating you over the head with, they're kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
If you come back and had a nice some kind of a encounter of some type, well, then maybe you got a friendly one.
I've often wondered if George Lucas used Bigfoot as his model for Chewbacca.
I think maybe, you'd wonder.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you, Ron, for coming and being with us today. I think this is going to be a great episode.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing. This is totally an interesting take on this.
I
I've
appreciate
never heard-
you asking me. I kind of got out of the box of Bigfootology, but I've been doing it a little bit more than most people have.
Sure.
I think I put the dots together. I've been into Siberia, Moscow, South America, Nepal, all those places, researching what any of these things may have in common with the North American Bigfoot that we encounter here.
Fantastic.
That's amazing. Yeah, thanks again. We really appreciate it.
And we look forward to having you again in the future for your next book, maybe.
Well, don't hold your breath on that.
Great. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Your call will be answered in the order it was received.
So I guess we got some mail.
We'd like to thank Mr. Garza's college prep English class for these questions. They're really thoughtful, and we do appreciate them.
Yeah.
So our first one's from Leanne, and she wants to know, how was Bigfoot created into this world? What made Bigfoot Bigfoot?
Dude, if I could answer the question, what made Bigfoot created, or how was he created into this world, I could answer a whole lot of other questions that people would ask, but...
Yeah, that's a hard one.
It is. It is. And it's hard to know exactly what Leanne was thinking when she wrote it, but what made Bigfoot Bigfoot?
I think we could look at this evolutionary-wise.
Right.
Like, where did it come from? I guess it goes back to that kind of the monkey question. Is he a member of the ape family or not?
No, they're not an ape. I think pretty definitively say there's a split between apes and Sasquatch. Now, here's the other question: are they purely an evolutionary product of this world, or are they a genetic manipulation from outside this world?
Okay, so that's where you lose me. I mean, we really thank Ron for coming in and speaking, but Ron touched on that too, the whole out of this world thing. And while space is huge, I'll admit that, and we don't know what's out there, I just don't know. I mean, if we accepted that as a fact, would we have to accept the fact that we're all made from something else, from somewhere else?
That's a good question. I mean, you have to either embrace or reject the whole idea of life outside and Earth having been influenced by life outside.
Yeah.
So, ancient aliens and that whole topic. But if Bigfoot, okay, let's just say, well, we know from DNA, which we've already heard back when Dennis was on, we know from the DNA that they're a hybrid of human and something else. So if that is true, and I believe it is, then the something else is the big question. And was that mix a natural mix, meaning, Sasquatch breeding with humans, or was it a genetic composition made by something or somebody. So all we know is that there's a human side to the DNA and there's an unknown side to the DNA. But there's no ape.
No ape.
I think we can say definitively there was no ape. So Sasquatch is not the gorilla's big brother, cousin, uncle, whatever. No ape incest going on here. So, but that's a big question too, because among researchers, you kind of have your ape crowd and you have your non-ape. Because if you're going to go down the ape line, if Bigfoot is an ape, North America's great ape or whatever, because they're on every continent, then you have to follow that reasoning to say, okay, if they're an ape, then they have a certain level of intelligence compared to an ape, all right? If they're not an ape and they're part human, then that takes you in a whole different direction, certainly intelligence-wise. And I think our research tends to show a high level of intelligence. And upcoming episodes, we'll talk about gifting, which is one thing that we do in research that I think really shows this is way more than ape level of intelligence. But what made Bigfoot Bigfoot? The name obviously came about in the 50s just because they didn't know what to call this thing that people were finding tracks for, and they were big. So
before that,
Bigfoot.
It was something else.
They didn't know what to call it. They called it wild man. They called it. People did call them apes or gorillas, hairy men, but I don't think the term Sasquatch was even used back then. So I'm not sure what they called it. If you look back on newspaper clippings going back into the 1800s, early 1900s, they're called hairy men a lot. What do you call this great, huge, walks on two legs covered in hair thing?
Yeah.
And so Bigfoot stuck because it gave an easy name for this creature that people could attach to it, and that stuck.
And the iconic footprint.
Iconic footprint, right.
I will say, getting back to the aliens coming to Earth and creating Bigfoot, that is getting into the new Predator movies.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
That's how they did it. So.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So going on to the next one. Why has Bigfoot not been able to be tracked down?
So this is from Penelope. So tracked down. I'm assuming they mean tracked down and captured, or because people track them all the time, and we find their tracks all the time. You just don't hear about researchers tracking them till they see them.
Yeah, I mean, has anybody gone to the end of the rainbow to see what's at the end?
Well, we've had lots of instances where we followed tracks, but the tracks went further than we were able to go at the time. Plus, if they're as smart as we think they are, they see us coming long before we would ever track. It's like you're never going to follow tracks and all of a sudden you find a sleeping Bigfoot or, follow into a cave. I've known people that have followed tracks on snowmobiles for miles and finally just gave up because the tracks just kept going and going and going. So, and then you have this situation where you have tracks that just stop, and in the middle of an open space they just stop, and there's no tracks going forward. So where did they go? Who knows? It's just, and I've talked to several researchers that have had that happen where they're following some tracks and then they just disappear.
Off to the mothership.
Off to the mothership.
Well, I mean, I figured somebody would be able to track them. Get to the end. There's your Bigfoot.
Yeah, I mean, track down would be hard because I just think when we go out in the woods, we're in their domain. And so they know, it's like in your neighborhood. You know your neighborhood. You know everything. You know where everyone lives. When you were a kid, you knew all the shortcuts between the houses and everything. So a kid from another part of town comes in, and you're going to go play hide and seek or something, you
You
got
lose it.
way big
Yeah.
advantage. Way big advantage. So imagine that times 50 when you're in the woods and in Sasquatch domain, and we're just not built for that life. We're so.
Well, the gait alone, I mean, I feel like
Sure.
for something that big to be walking, you would have to kind of jog just to keep up
just
with
to keep
it.
up. And there's reports of how fast they are, how they glide almost rather than walking. Reports of them disappearing in front of people, and I have two of our research group who have actually seen them disappear in front of their eyes. So go where you want with that idea, but if that's true, if they can physically disappear, you're never going to track them.
Once again, we're getting into the predator plot.
Yes.
Because he's got that,
He's got that shield. And do they disappear, meaning do they go into another dimension or do they go cloaked?
Yeah.
And you just can't see them.
I mean, there is chameleons. They cloak themselves in a way.
In a way, and when I grew up in Africa and we had chameleons, and you could literally walk by a bush and not see them because they changed their color to match that bush. It wasn't like they can only do a solid green. They would do mottled on their skin, so they looked like the bushes.
Yeah.
Incredible.
That's always taken me back. That's one of those miracles of biology.
And they didn't go anywhere. They're still there. You just can't see them.
And they move super slow.
Yeah,
right?
they do. So, nature has that. Octopus do the same thing. They
that's right.
totally camouflage themselves. So now, for something as big as a Bigfoot that's hairy and physical, I don't know how they would do that. But again, there's a lot we don't know about them. But I just think they haven't been tracked down. Short answer, they're just too smart. And they're way ahead of us. So, you're playing catch up constantly with them, pardon the pun, but they see you coming a long way off, so they're going to do whatever they have to do to avoid being tracked.
Well, next time you go out, I say, let me know. We'll deploy the drone and go track it.
There you go.
Maybe an aerial attack.
That's not a bad idea.
That's
Not a bad idea.
All right, this is from Vanessa Morales. Can Bigfoot ever be recreated in the future? Now, this whole question supposes that there is no more Bigfoot, first of all. And second, that we're going to clone him.
Right.
So, is there anything to clone a Bigfoot with? Right.
Well, when the DNA was analyzed, they analyzed blood, hair, and some tissue that was supposedly from a Bigfoot. So, I don't know how much it takes to clone. I don't know when they cloned Dolly the sheep, how much they had.
Dolly's dead.
Oh, the cloned Dolly.
The original Dolly.
Okay.
But the clones are healthier than Dolly was, and they've outlived Dolly. Dolly had some kind of disease.
Oh, so...
That's just, it's funny.
Here's the other question. If you're talking cloning, if you clone yourself, do you have two different personalities?
See, okay. This is me and the wife, because we were just talking about Dolly. That's funny. Let's go. We had the same exact conversation.
Right.
Me, they're the same. I know movies like The Island will suggest differently. You know.
So does the new Dolly behave exactly like the old Dolly did?
She proved me wrong. My assumption wrong. No, they're all different.
Oh, wow.
And like I said, the genetic defaults the original had, none of the rest have them.
That's interesting.
That is. It's really weird.
And so they didn't re-clone with the same genetic error that made that disease.
I don't know how that was omitted. But so I would think yes, they could. From what you said, they could
clone a Bigfoot.
So why don't we do it?
I don't know. It's a good question. Yeah. We can't find them. Let's clone them.
Yeah, we'll make them.
What an idea. There you go.
So thank you for Vanessa.
Yeah.
You have redirected science.
Omar.
All right. This one's from Omar. And when was the first sighting of Bigfoot recorded? Was it photographed?
Well, the first sightings happened way before photography. So we have sightings back into the 1700s, early 1700s. So I think Omar's assuming here that this is a recent, past century phenomenon.
Probably from what everybody knows, the
Right.
Patterson-Gimlin.
So when was the first sighting recorded? Boy, I couldn't tell you. I mean, if you go back, Dave Palladius just put together a book that's very helpful that is basically just newspaper clippings from throughout history that talk about giants, Sasquatch, and I can't remember the third. And I don't know how he found all this information, but it's an entire book of clippings, and I don't know. He's got it done by date in the index, which is really helpful. But I'll have to look and see what was the first one. But it goes back, way back. I mean, it's in the early parts of the discovery of this country. I mean, stuff was even before modern newspaper. I mean, there's recordings of the Vikings encountering things in the U.S. when they came, and so I couldn't even tell you 300 years back, maybe more, the first recorded sightings. Recorded meaning somebody wrote it down and published it.
That's the way I take it too. That, you know.
And was it photographed? No, not back then. But it's funny because there's drawings. People drew what they saw because there were no cameras, but they drew. Even Albert Ostman, who was supposedly abducted in 1924, drew a picture of one of the Sasquatch that abducted him, the female. I think he was abducted by the male, but the male took him to where the rest, the female and some young, were, and he drew a picture of the female. So, you know, pictures sufficed, but I guess when you didn't have cameras, people drew what they saw.
Well, I mean, also you got to kind of think about technology. If we're talking about that period, I mean, imagine how long it would take them to set up a camera.
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
And then just be lucky enough to actually capture.
Well, and you'd have to ask Sasquatch to stand still while they recorded on the what was the material they used on their plates?
God.
That actually took the image.
See, I know what I forgot.
They had plates. They had to put a plate in there. They had to open the cover and expose that plate to light, and it took them seconds, many seconds, and then they had to cover it back up again.
It's not a pictograph. It's like a something graph.
It's like those. You remember in the old West movies where they're standing there for their photo, and then they had this like gunpowder or something. Yeah. And it would go poof, and that would make the light for the image. So yeah, I mean that goes way back, but you can never do that with Sasquatch.
No,
like you said.
As soon as he moves, that whole frame is...
Yeah, so you have to go to modern photography, 35 millimeter photography or whatever, to get the first images of Bigfoot. But there's images that go back quite a ways into the 40s, 50s. You can find photos that were taken of Sasquatch. So
now this actually brings up one for me that I was thinking of. Now we're talking about photographs, and everybody that we've talked to so far has mentioned that, technology won't work. Their cell phones stop working, something like that.
Right.
Why wasn't that the case, do you think, with Gimlin video?
Good question, because they certainly got the footage. And why have we not gotten anything like it since?
Yeah. I mean, it's 16 millimeter, but I'm pretty sure there was electronic components in it to make it work.
No, actually it was Super 8. They recorded that on a
8?
Super 8 camera, yeah. And they had a modified lens that, I mean, I guess you could change lenses on the Super 8s back then, but yeah, I mean, it was film. It was real film, and it's not every time you go out that something like that happens. I've been out many times, and my equipment works fine, but when I've been out where it didn't work, it seemed like all of our equipment didn't work.
Yeah.
It wasn't just one person's stuff. We would get out there and everybody's batteries had died, or the rechargeable stuff had all gone down to zero. So, but yeah, I don't know what the Patterson-Gimlin, and it does make you wonder. Here I'm gonna push it a little bit, but how much do Sasquatch communicate with each other? So let's say that the Sasquatch that were filmed, and there's a lot of people that believe there was more than one in that situation at the Patterson-Gimlin film. How much did they communicate? How much was it communicated between Sasquatch or within the Sasquatch community, if you will, so that they, when they saw, I mean, do they know what a camera is? Do they know what a camera produces? I've often thought it'd be interesting to make a life-size cutout of a Sasquatch and take it out in the woods where you believe they are, and put it out there and see, like a decoy, or just to see, do they come by and destroy it? Do they, how do they interact with that? And it wouldn't be a photo of a Sasquatch, or even if you took that image, one of the images from that movie, and blow it up to a life size and stick it out in the woods. We've never been very good, successful at putting a camera out and getting Sasquatch on film.
Yeah.
I believe they know. I can't say they know what a camera is or what film is. They know that's a foreign object in their environment. And for some reason, they're not bothered by audio recording. We have tons and tons of vocalizations. You put audio recorders out around your camp. You can hear them walking around. You can hear their vocalizations. But you put a video recorder, they don't go in front of it. You can hear them on the sound of the video. You can hear them around, but they don't ever go in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do they know that? How do they know that to go in front of that will mean they get an image? Somebody gets an image of them.
This is Lynn's friend.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. But they, again, or what you have happen is you'll be out, they'll record, you'll see a recording, and then all of a sudden the frame is whited out for like 20 frames, and then it goes back to the normal recording again. Well, what was that? What whited it out, and how did they do that? I know if you get too close to an infrared, it'll white out the image. But this is weird. It's like the whole frame, the whole camera just went and just white image, then goes back to the normal recording. I haven't heard of anybody that's figured out what happened there and why they did that.
Yeah.
So it was that when the Bigfoot came in, made sure that the camera couldn't record them, however they could do that. And then when they're gone, let the camera go back to normal. It's just, there's so much about these things that is fascinating, inexplicable. So,
if they have the capacity, if we're assuming they are otherworld beings, why haven't they taken us over?
Yeah.
I know the military would love to have a non-nuclear EMP option.
Yeah.
You just drop in Sasquatch into a war zone, and there goes all the electronics. It's just, there are weird little things that I always have trouble wrapping my head around with that. As a creature, I'm more willing to believe it's a creature of Earth, somewhere down the evolutionary line.
Right.
Something split, than I am, out of this
So
world.
are they, let's say they're a creature. Are they beyond us in evolution?
So that would be, we'd have to, you would have to have one to compare.
Yeah, you would.
Size, survivability suggests to me that they are beyond us evolutionary-wise. They take care of their environment,
right.
Right. A true believer of leave no trace.
Exactly.
Oh, we got one more. So this one's from Camila. I hope I said that right.
Yeah.
Sorry if I didn't. Everyone has a cell phone camera these days, and most of the pictures we see of Bigfoot are out of focus. With the new and improved technology, shouldn't there be more pictures of Bigfoot? Well, we kind of got into this a little before.
We did.
But thank you. A girl after my own heart.
Yes, everyone has cameras on their cell phones. That assumes that your cell phone is on, that you're on the camera app when you see a Bigfoot.
Well, yeah.
So that, and here's what often happens, is people will be out, you see it, you see something that you think is a Bigfoot, you've got to get your camera out of your pocket, which means you got to take your eyes off of the Bigfoot, pull your camera out, turn it on, get to the camera on the phone, and get it up and get the Bigfoot in the viewfinder. That's a lot of time for that Bigfoot to disappear.
Yeah.
Whether he runs away or whatever. And when they move fast. I know that. So you'd almost assume to say why or to believe that we could easily get pictures means you got to have your video camera on and you're filming everything that you're doing that day.
Yeah. Hey, but people do that.
The GoPros, all that stuff.
Yeah, they put their GoPros on. They walk through the woods. I mean, that's something.
And people are getting images. I mean, again, this question: shouldn't there be more pictures of Bigfoot? Well, go online and to YouTube, or even just to Google and say Sasquatch or Bigfoot. You're going to see probably 50,000, 100,000, 1 million hits. And there's tons of video and images out there. How much of it is hoaxed? That would take time to figure that out because you have to go and really investigate that. But there's a lot of it that's not. There's a lot of hoaxes. People dress up in a gorilla suit and they do some stupid sexual thing of Bigfoot or, amazing. And I hate it when you go on YouTube and it's like, amazing footage of Bigfoot. I'm like, oh, I'll go check this out. And it's some guy walking through doing a moonwalk in in a Sasquatch suit or whatever. But there are literally, I'd have to say, thousands of very compelling videos, photos. So it's out there. I just think people don't realize how much is there now on the internet.
Well, that's because, like you said, I mean, when you're looking through that, you do have to go through all the garbage.
You do.
You know? But that's anything.
Yeah, sure.
You could cheeseburger, and there would be ridiculous videos that have nothing to do with cheeseburger.
Right.
So, yeah, I will say, as far as taking out your phone and recording it, I mean, all I got to do is hit it twice, and then I'm on.
Right. And here's the other question.
I'm a geek.
Yeah.
That's
okay. Geek factor. Take the geek factor. Let's assume everyone was a geek. But it also assumes that when you're out there and you see a Sasquatch, one, that you even think about taking your camera out. Because I've talked to several people who had a camera and had a phone in their pocket. They were so either dumbfounded, awestruck, terrified, that it never even occurred to them to grab their camera. I've known guys who were driving in a car with a video camera in their lap, see a Sasquatch off to the side in the trees. After the whole event's over, they've seen it, they watched it disappear, they look in their lap and they're like, oh, crap, I had a camera right here. I never thought, but it's just your mind goes other places when you see something that shouldn't exist, that you should never see. So I think you'd have to have a great presence of mind to get a video. And there's lots of videos I've seen of people who see something, they start to video it with their phone, and then something happens. Either the Sasquatch vocalizes and it terrifies them, and the next thing you know, they're running. All you see is this blur and movement. They're running away. Or they realize that they're way too close and they stop recording and they try and get away or something. So you'd have to be in this situation yourself where you see something that you're sure is a Sasquatch and you start videoing. If I felt like I was threatened and I had to get away, I ain't going to keep videoing. I'm getting out of there,
That is true. It does take a certain type of person to keep rolling or even lift the camera.
Even if it's a bear.
Yeah.
People that see a bear or a mountain lion. Yeah.
Combat correspondents.
Yeah.
Same thing, like those are crazy people who don't go to war with weapons. They just go
and they keep filming even when their life is at risk.
Yeah. So, it does take a special time.
It does.
When you feel that way.
What I'm waiting for is the lost footage of somebody that gets attacked by a Sasquatch and they're gone. You never hear about that. You find a phone or a camera, and that's what they were recording when they were attacked. Never has happened, but...
Well, Willow Creek, they did
Willow Creek. Right. You hear all the noises of his head being ripped off or whatever it was. But
the best bone-breaking noise ever.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I guess that's it for this
questions.
segment for questions.
Well, hopefully, at least our answers were amusing enough for people to listen to this part.
I hope so. I hope they got something from it. And, guys, we've made ourselves available on Facebook, on our website, on your Facebook page, too, Outpost.
Yep.
Send in your questions, and we'd love to answer them for you.
Great. And we may not have the best answer, but we'll have an answer. What did you think? There were a lot of info in that interview, wasn't there?
Yeah, I can't actually wait to listen to him. I know he said he made it available online, so that's
online,
awesome.
And his books and CDs or DVDs are available for sale as well at our store and online.
Oh, good. And you know what? We actually will probably have it listed on the podcast website.
We
too.
should do that too.
All right, and that's right. You heard us. We actually have our own new website.
Hey, we're excited.
Yeah.
We're up and running.
You want to? Do you know how to get there yet?
Yeah, it's youdon'tknowsquatch.com.
That's right. It is we had our lovely assistant help us out with that.
Awesome.
She put it together. Stephanie can too. She does a lot of
grateful
website.
for Stephanie.
So, as always, folks, we'd love it if you jump on to iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you heard us. Give us a 5-star rating. Subscribe, please. And,
Yeah, give us a review. Write a review of our podcast if you like.
And also, we'll have in the link, right? Now we have the links to be able to send us questions directly.
Awesome. Perfect.
So, send us questions. Any questions you have, we'll be sure to answer them. And until next time, always remember,
You don't know Squatch.